Good evening and welcome to the late night edition of the Abington Township Board of Commissioners Committee of the Whole for November 10th, 2021. Our first item of business this evening is a motion to approve the minutes from the Board of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting of October 14, 2021, and I so move. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions from commissioners in the room? Are there any comments or questions from commissioners on Zoom? Sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. We have no presentations this evening, so next up on the agenda is public comment on agenda items only. And so if there are comments about any of the three agenda items this evening, we will now entertain those comments now.
Seven, your microphone is unmuted.
Hello, I believe I made a comment at this is Khaki Evans. I believe I made a comment at the last committee of the whole. I don't see it in the minutes, but I'll just reiterate. I really appreciated Manager Manfredi's presentation about the policies and procedures, and especially the aspect about the comp plan being a living, breathing document that would become, I guess, to explain it at a committee or something that will be how it's going to be maintained. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have one other comment on agenda items.
Ms. Lehman, your microphone is unmuted.
Okay, this is Laura Lehman. You guys are absolutely unbelievable. I just sent you the sunshine law that says that 3 minutes is not at all adequate for a budget, okay? And you cut me off on 3 minutes on an 825-page budget, and you cut me off on a budget on agenda items that included 10 other items.
So, Ms. Lehman, we're not here to speak about the budget. This is the committee of the whole meeting.
I'm interrupting the meeting on 710C of the Sunshine Law, which is my right to interrupt and tell you that you have violated my speaking rights.
I'm going to ask the township solicitor to weigh in, please.
As we discussed last month, the resident has a right to bring a perceived violation of the Sunshine Act to your attention.
Yes.
She has done that. She has other avenues available to her if she thinks that the Sunshine Law has been violated. Now she can move on with her comments, and she has to adhere to the comments, the speaking rules for this meeting, and that is that she has to talk about agenda items.
Thank you.
I am ready to talk about agenda items, but all of you received the note that I was interrupting on 710C, so 710.1C. And so all of you knew that I was doing that. That is not acceptable. What you guys are doing is just breaking the law at will. So I am now going to start my comments. It's 10:25.
Ms. Lehman, you have 3 minutes, 23 seconds. Please continue.
I have 5 minutes. That was an interruption on the Sunshine Law. I am now starting my comments on the agenda items for the Committee of the Whole. It's 10:25 p.m. Okay, and what you have on the Committee of the Whole is you have added this new speaking rules stuff that is just unbelievable. What effectively you are doing is you are creating your Economic Development Corporation. We have hired Mr. Manfredi to run the township. He is assigning a committee that will be appointed by John Spiegelman, just like the Economic Development Committee was going to be appointed. And he is going to allow him to have experts come in, contractors, anybody that he wants, to come in and chair these committees and then work with them and Mr. Manfredi to decide our business. This is Abington Township business. Our committees should be populated by residents of the township with skill, expertise, homes in the township that they care about, and this is their government and their opportunity to participate in their government that is being removed. On top of which, you had any number of items it is a 23-page rules and regulations for meetings. And as you saw, residents come to the meeting, they haven't taken a course in the 23 pages, and you're telling people they can't read their comments? They actually have to submit them, and they're supposed to extemporaneously summarize them? You saw people all night long reading their comments, which they had carefully worked into the 3-minute period that they were allowed. The stuff that is in there is unbelievable and totally against the interests of the people of Abington Township. We want the people of Abington Township to determine what the speaking rules should be and work together with you so that when you have problems and this is problematic for you, that we work together and work out how that should happen. Not to have people who would like us to sit down, shut up, go away, populate our boards with members of Pannoni and who knows who else, developers and everybody else. We have them on our boards now, and they shouldn't be. If they don't live in this township and they aren't there just as a normal citizen and they have a conflict of interest, they shouldn't be on our boards. So what you've created with 23 pages, and you've created brand new committees, completely unexplaining whether the old committees are still going to be in force. Did we lose Public Works? Did we lose Public Safety? Or are these new ones? None of that was explained. This should not be voted on tonight. This should be discussed with the residents, explained, and resident input should be allowed in the speaking rules and the participation in our government. What you're doing is not right. You need to stop.
Thank you for your comments. We have one final resident.
Mr. Rooney, your microphone has been unmuted.
Hi, Joe Rooney. I'd like to reiterate some of what Laura just said. I was trying to read that document also. I don't have the in-depth knowledge as she does, but I agree it needs more time to be reviewed. And if that part is true about people can't prepare their comments in advance, then that has to be struck out of that thing. And I read it and wasn't exactly sure what it meant, whether you're not allowed to read them, or only if you're going to submit comments that are printed are you not allowed to read them. So I would appreciate if that at the very least would be explained. And I too think that I talked about it at the last meeting. You guys need to build a safety net around more public comment and more participation rather than trying to limit it. So thank you. I know it's been a really long night, and I appreciate all the time you're putting into it, and I'll shut up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rooney. Seeing that there are no other comments on the agenda, we will move to the agenda. We have one item of unfinished business, and this is to consider the revision to the policy on public participation and policies and procedures for the Board of Commissioners and committees. And for this, I will turn briefly to Manager Manfredi.
Do I dare say anything, Mr. Hecker? The policy, as you know, there was a lengthy presentation, a PowerPoint that went through the various aspects of this recommended policy. The policy itself has been distributed to you for review, and I will answer any questions that anyone has. With respect to, I'll answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Manager Manfredi. Are there questions from commissioners in the room? Commissioner Weingrad.
Thank you, Manager Manfredi. Just so I understand, these new committees that we're talking about here would replace the old committees, or the committees like public safety, all those, land use, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Except for finance, finance remains.
All right, and it's meant to be, these are going to be populated by the Board of Commissioners, not some other appointed person or entity, right?
It is, these are committees of the Board of Commissioners, yes.
So one question I had is that I'm chair of the pension committee, and I didn't see it anywhere in here. I don't need to keep that title. I do think, though, that Board of Commissioners should have their eyes on what's going on with the pension fund. Are there any, I don't know, what are we doing with that?
I think there's two things. I think that committee is not a committee of the Board of Commissioners. There are members of the board who sit on that committee, but they're also employees of the non-union and the various unions that are represented on it. I think it makes perfect sense, and Commissioner Hecker and I have talked about this as we were going through this. It makes perfect sense, especially since that committee, the members of that committee are Finance Committee members, for it to be a subset or I don't want to call it a subcommittee of the Finance Committee, but it would remain with the Finance Committee. And the committee with respect to investments and everything else, that has to be as established by the investment policy.
Okay, all right, so
So the long story short is, I would imagine that the Pension Advisory Committee would be members of the Finance Committee. I mean, that's completely up to Board of Commissioners.
So, I mean, Commissioner Weingart, I actually think in practice, nothing changes. I mean, there's a township committee for the pension. We have to populate that with a certain number of commissioners. We'll continue to do it for sake of convenience over the years. And I think for, there being some continuity between the two committees, it has been practice, although not policy, that the members of the pension committee may also be members of the finance committee. And that's something, I mean, we don't have to decide this evening. We can have that conversation moving forward, and if that seems like that's the right direction to go, then we would just implement that in practice.
fair enough. But the pension committee doesn't have to be named in this
No,
document.
because
You feel comfortable with that?
I do, because it is a unique committee among the committees that the commissioners participate in, because it is not just a board committee. As you well know, chairing it, it is also comprised of township staff.
Okay, thank you. In reading through the document, I appreciate all the time that Manager Manfredi, you put into this, and Vice President Hecker, you put into this. I tend to believe that between the two of you, if you believe that this is a more efficient way to have a committee structure, to move things forward, to do good work for people and for our residents, then I'm in favor of it. So I appreciate it, but again, I appreciate all the time you put into it, because clearly you put a lot of time into it, so.
Thank you, Commissioner Weingart. Other comments? I see none in the room. I see Commissioner Rothman has his hand up.
I just want to say that as in the past, if we think that this isn't working well and we don't have enough input and opportunity to speak with residents and they're concerned, we will be able to make a change. And I think that the living, breathing document nature of this approach, combined with all the thought and time that's gone into it, is worth us taking that next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rothman. Commissioner Schreiber.
Thank you. I've gotten a couple questions about this, so I just wanted to point this out. So similarly to, changing it as we see things that are maybe not working right, there's a few things that may be left out of the actual committees. And as we've done in the past, there is the possibility of having liaison positions come up between commissioners, and like in the past, we had somebody as a liaison to the vacancy board, for example, or the economic development. So if there's missing pieces that are not on one of these newly formed committees, that there would be liaisons put in there as well. So that was one of the things we had discussed when we were writing it up, but I don't think it's in the actual document.
It's not currently in the document.
No, I thought the discussion was that there's really nothing precluding the board from appointing liaisons at any
Correct.
time, even though it wasn't in here.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to add. I'm not saying it should go in the document. I'm just saying I wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Commissioner Schreiber, is there anything else? Okay, thank you. President Spiegelman?
Thank you, Vice President Hecker. to reiterate, or to build on the comments of some of our colleagues, the direction in which you and Manager Manfredi went with this was absolutely in keeping with where we're moving as a legislative and executive body. The work you put into it speaks for itself. Manager Manfredi's presentation last time around, I think this is absolutely ready for prime time, which is to say proper consideration. And so with that, I would like to make a motion that we move this policy forward for consideration at the next month's board meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and it has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The matter will move forward to the December board meeting. We'll now move on to new business, for which we have 2 items. The first is to consider creating appeals policy and procedure for residents who are denied eligibility into the township's owner-occupied home rehabilitation program. And for this, we're going to turn to Ms. Ham, or do you want to speak first, Manager Manfredi?
I'll speak first. Ms. Ham made me aware, and that she could talk to it, but she made me aware that when we originally moved forward with this, that it was a policy that we believed, and she could talk to it, it was required the board's adoption, but it can remain an internal policy. So with that, Ms. Ham, if you would, just talk to it.
Sure. So, go ahead, Rich. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
So we're not asking for action on it this evening.
Oh, okay.
Correct. So as we continue to update the policies and procedures surrounding the owner-occupied rehabilitation program, it came to our attention that the manual with which we are currently operating does not include a mechanism for appeal for residents who have been denied eligibility. We had put in requests with our DCED and our HUD reps to confirm a need to put this matter before the Board of Commissioners for consideration. But I was informed earlier today that it is not a requirement of HUD and DCED to move this forward. Your consideration is not needed.
Thank you, Ms. Ham. I would say, if we're not requiring action this evening, I would say that.
May I just ask a question of
Certainly.
Ms. Ham? What would be a reason to be denied?
Probably the biggest reason that comes up in the township is a location, a residence that is located within a floodplain. That is currently a criteria that would exclude someone. And the reason that was originally put into the manual is because of the extreme cost that is required to rehabilitate a home per HUD standards within a flood zone.
Thank you.
So I might suggest, Commissioner Rupp, no? Okay. What I might suggest is, given the lateness of the hour and the fact that no action is being requested of us this evening, that we have a discussion about this at the time that action is being requested of us. And
Some of us don't have too much time left.
What a dark way of phrasing that.
Fair enough, Commissioner Myers.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we move on to item B, and this is to consider approving advertisement of an ordinance, I think that should say, to vacate Parkview Avenue, extending northwesterly from Rockwell Road to the property line of the Northeast Pennsylvania Railroad. We're missing a few words. Mr. Clark. Which Clark? Oh, Tim Clark? I think it's Mr. Tim Clark. Yeah, it's late. You're Clark with an E. This is Tim Clark with no E.
That would be me.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
This is a unopened portion of Parkview. We often refer to it as a paper street. Back when the neighborhood was developed in the late 40s, it showed Parkview extending, however, it couldn't because of the railroad behind it. The two abutting neighbors at 1816 and 1822 have requested that we vacate that so they can incorporate it into their deeds. It's been done many times before, and the township, I do not have an issue with it.
Okay.
And if I may add,
Yes.
and I'm sure Commissioner Carswell will speak to this, but Ms. Bilby has been very patient in her request over many, many months as we worked through this. There's only two things I want to note. Ms. Gallagher, who is enjoying motherhood, I would presume at this point, about a year or so ago, we established a policy and an ordinance as to how we wanted to go through and what process, because we didn't really have a formal process for the vacation of roads. So what we are doing is following this process, that if you approve this, there'll be an ordinance that has to be adopted, and the roads will be vacated and the properties would turn back. But it's, Ms. Carswell, if you'd want to.
I just simply wanted to share that there's a couple of streets that line up Ward 10 up against the train tracks. These are streets that go nowhere because of the train tracks.
Yep.
And the neighbors here have expressed interest in being able to take control of and maintain this property. In many cases, they've already been maintaining it because there is nothing but grass or, plant life there. There is no township property infrastructure underneath, as Tim, I think, shared, so it's a pretty easy plan. But I thought it was very important that we follow a policy and that it not just be a resident who came to a commissioner and who then advocated for them. I really wanted to make sure that we were consistent because you'd be surprised how many little paper roads we have around this township, so.
Lots of them.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, for helping us with that process.
Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner Carswell. So Manager Manfredi, just to be clear, so we would be approving advertising this ordinance to be reviewed at the December board meeting? Okay. So Commissioner Carswell, you want to make the motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we, give me a second here, that we approve advertising an ordinance to vacate Parkview Avenue extending northwesterly from Rockwell Road to the property line of the Northeast Pennsylvania Railroad.
Second.
Second. Third.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
The matter will move forward, as indicated, to the December board meeting. And with that, at 10:39 on a Wednesday evening, we are officially adjourned. Thank you.